The collision. Maya Reeves wiped condensation from the observatory cafe window, watching the last crimson streaks of sunset fade beyond the silhouetted pines. The small coffee shop attached to the Mountain Ridge Observatory should have closed 20 minutes ago, but Dr. Harrison had texted that a potential donor was coming for a late tour, so here she was, postponing her planned night of research to serve overpriced lattes to someone who might rescue their struggling facility. Another hour of capitalism before astronomy, she muttered, adjusting the planetary system model hanging above the counter. At 27, Maya's dark curls were already streaked with a premature silver strand, her researcher's highlight, as her fellow grad students called it. 4 years of pursuing her doctorate in astrophysics while working full-time had left little room for anything else, including sleep. Headlights swept across the parking lot, illuminating the empty cafe. The approaching vehicle was sleek and expensive, some electric luxury model that probably cost more than her student loans. Maya straightened her observatory logo apron and prepared her professional smile. The man who entered moved with the confident air of someone accustomed to rooms adjusting to his presence. Tall, with sharp features and calculating eyes that took in everything at once. He wore casual clothes that somehow still looked expensive. Dark jeans and a gray sweater that probably cost more than her monthly rent. "Coffee, black? Strongest you have?" he said without preamble, not looking up from his phone. His fingers moved rapidly across the screen, answering messages that apparently couldn't wait another 30 seconds. Maya's professional smile tightened. "We're actually closed." That got his attention. He looked up, seeming genuinely surprised that his request might be denied. The door was unlocked. "We're staying open late for a scheduled visitor," Maya explained. "Dr. Harrison's donor meeting." The man's expression shifted from surprise to something more calculated. "I am the donor meeting." Maya studied him more carefully. This was the potential savior of their funding crisis. He looked younger than she expected, maybe mid-30s, with the tech entrepreneur vibe that had become ubiquitous in recent years. "You're here to see Dr. Harrison about supporting the observatory?" "Elias Shaw," he offered, extending his hand. "And yes, my foundation is considering a contribution to your research programs." Maya's astronomy-focused brain made the connection instantly. Shaw Technologies, the quantum computing people. "Among other things," he acknowledged with a hint of amusement. "Now about that coffee?" Maya hesitated. Everything about this man radiated entitled impatience, from his stance to his tone. The observatory desperately needed funding, but something in her refused to simply acquiesce. "We can certainly arrange that," she said carefully, "if you could just add the word please to your request." Elias stared at her, clearly unused to being challenged by service staff. "Excuse me?" "Basic courtesy," Maya clarified. "Even billionaires use it occasionally. I hear it's the latest trend." A beat of silence stretched between them. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs as she realized she might be torpedoing the observatory's financial future over a point of principle. Then, surprisingly, one corner of Elias Shaw's mouth twitched upward. "Could I please have a coffee?" he asked, his tone somewhere between amused and intrigued. "Black, strongest available, since I'll apparently need my wits about me for this meeting." Maya nodded, turning to the espresso machine. "Much better. See how easy that was?" As she prepared his drink, she felt his eyes on her, assessing in a way that wasn't entirely professional. When she turned back with his coffee, he was studying the astronomical photographs decorating the cafe walls. "Did you take these?" he asked, nodding toward a particularly striking image of the Orion Nebula. "Yes," Maya admitted. "The observatory lets staff use the equipment during off hours. Though staff might be overselling my position. I'm really just a graduate student who makes excellent coffee." Elias accepted the cup, taking a careful sip, and enforces etiquette, apparently. "Only when necessary," Maya replied, meeting his gaze directly. Something shifted in his expression, a flash of genuine interest replacing the practiced charm. "And what do you study besides manners?" he asked, leaning slightly against the counter. "Astrophysics. Specifically, stellar mapping of systems with unusual radiation patterns." "It's fascinating," Elias finished, surprising her. "You're looking for habitable exoplanets?" "Among other things," Maya echoed his earlier words, unable to hide her surprise at his understanding. Before Elias could respond, Dr. Harrison bustled in, apologizing for his tardiness. Watching the elderly astronomer lead the tech mogul toward the observatory dome, Maya found herself strangely disappointed that their conversation had been cut short. As they left, Elias glanced back. "Excellent coffee," he called. "Thank you." The added courtesy wasn't lost on her. Maya closed the cafe and retreated to the small research office she shared with 2 other graduate students. While her ancient laptop struggled to process stellar data, her mind kept returning to the encounter. Something about Elias Shaw bothered her. Not just his initial rudeness, but the way he'd adapted so quickly, shifted his approach when challenged. Men like him were dangerous precisely because they learned and evolved, becoming whatever they needed to be to get what they wanted. She'd seen it before. Her father had trusted a charming tech investor with the family's savings, believing the practiced smiles and confident promises. When the venture collapsed, the investor walked away unscathed while her father lost everything, including eventually his will to live. Not falling for that again, Maya murmured to the empty room, forcing her attention back to her research. The next evening, Maya was surprised to see Elias Shaw return to the cafe shortly before closing time. This time he came alone without Dr. Harrison. "We're closing in 15 minutes, she informed him as he approached the counter. "I know," he replied. "I'd like a coffee, please." He emphasized the last word with a hint of irony. "And maybe a few minutes of your time." Maya raised an eyebrow. "My time?" "To discuss your research," Elias clarified. "Dr. Harrison showed me the observatory but didn't know the details of the graduate projects. If I'm considering funding this facility, I should understand all aspects of its work. Don't you agree?" It was a reasonable explanation, yet Maya sensed an ulterior motive. Nevertheless, the opportunity to discuss her research with someone who might actually fund it wasn't something she could dismiss. "1 coffee," she agreed. "And 10 minutes. That's all I can spare before I need to start my observation time." Elias smiled. Not the practiced charm from earlier, but something that seemed almost genuine. 10 minutes is all I'm asking. For now." As Maya prepared his coffee, she wondered what game Elias Shaw was really playing and why. Despite her better judgment, she was intrigued enough to find out. The proposition 10 minutes turned into 30, then 60. The cafe had long closed, but Maya and Elias remained at a corner table beneath a model of the solar system, their conversation flowing from stellar cartography to quantum computing applications and astronomical data processing. "Your mapping algorithm is brilliant," Elias said, studying the laptop screen where Maya had reluctantly shared her research. "But you're limited by processing power." Maya nodded, trying not to be affected by his proximity as he leaned closer to examine her work. "University computing resources are stretched thin. I get about 4 hours of processing time per week." "What could you accomplish with unlimited computing access?" Elias asked, his eyes reflecting the glow of the screen. "Theoretically, I could map radiation patterns across thousands of star systems rather than dozens, potentially identify new phenomena that—" Maya stopped herself, suddenly aware of how enthusiastic she sounded. "That what?" Elias pressed. "That might not exist," she finished carefully. "It's just a theory." Elias studied her face, seeming to sense her sudden reservation. "I have a proposition for you, Maya. I'm not interested in selling my research," she replied immediately. "I'm not interested in buying it," he countered with surprising gentleness. "Shaw Technologies has developed quantum processing systems specifically designed for complex astronomical calculations. We need real-world testing environments." "And you want to use my algorithm?" "I want to give you access to our systems. You get the computing power you need. We get practical application data. Mutual benefit, not charity." Maya's fingers tightened around her coffee cup. "Why me? There are plenty of established researchers outward because your approach is fresh, unconventional," Elias said, his expression unexpectedly earnest. "The established researchers follow predictable patterns. You're looking where no one else is." Despite her wariness, Maya felt a flutter of excitement. Access to quantum computing would accelerate her research by years. "I'd maintain complete ownership of my work?" She verified. Elias nodded. "With appropriate credit to Shaw Technologies for computational support. Standard academic practice." Maya hesitated, then made her decision. "I'll need to see the agreement in writing." "Of course," Elias said, his smile brightening his features. "Shall we celebrate our arrangement?" He produced a small flask from his jacket, adding a splash to their coffee cups with a conspiratorial wink. The whiskey burned pleasantly as Maya considered what she might have just initiated a collaboration that could either launch her career or become her biggest regret. The discovery 3 weeks into their collaboration, Maya stood before the holographic display in Elias's private research lab, watching as billions of data points coalesced into a stunning three-dimensional map of stellar radiation patterns. "There," she whispered, pointing to an anomaly that shouldn't exist. "The algorithm found it." Elias moved to stand beside her, close enough that their arms brushed. "A fluctuating radiation signature that doesn't match any known stellar phenomena." "It could be an equipment error," Maya cautioned, though her voice betrayed her excitement. "Or it could be exactly what you've been looking for," Elias countered. His hand found hers in the dim light of the projection, the universe revealing itself through your eyes. The moment hung between them, the shared elation of discovery, the weeks of growing tension, the late nights of work that had gradually revealed more than just astronomical data. When Elias finally kissed her, Maya didn't pull away. The rational part of her mind, the part that warned against trusting charming men with power, fell silent against the evidence of weeks spent witnessing his genuine passion for her work, his respect for her boundaries, his willingness to listen. They barely made it to his apartment above the lab, clothes discarded between urgent kisses and whispered affirmations. Their coming together held the intensity of their shared discovery, exploration, wonder, and something that felt dangerously like falling. Afterward, lying in tangled sheets as dawn approached, Maya traced patterns on Elias's chest, connecting invisible constellations between freckles. "What will you name it?" he asked sleepily. "Your discovery. If it's confirmed," Maya corrected, always the cautious scientist. "When it's confirmed," Elias insisted, pulling her closer. Maya smiled against his shoulder, allowing herself this moment of perfect contentment before the world intruded. It intruded sooner than expected. While Elias showered, his tablet chimed with an incoming message. Maya wouldn't normally have looked, but the subject line caught her eye. "Observatory acquisition. Final paperwork." Her blood ran cold as she opened the message, scanning the attached documents outlining Shaw Technologies' plans to purchase the observatory property for conversion into a cutting-edge research campus. The timing told her everything. The acquisition had been in process for months, since before she'd met Elias. The man who'd held her through the night had known all along that his company planned to dismantle her scientific home. When Elias emerged from the bathroom, he found Maya fully dressed, her expression glacial. "When were you going to tell me?" she demanded, holding up the tablet. Elias froze, water still dripping from his hair. "Maya, I can explain." "Explain what?" "How you used me, gained my trust while planning to destroy the observatory." "The acquisition predates our meeting," Elias insisted. "I didn't seek you out because of it." "But you didn't tell me," Maya countered, gathering her things. "While I shared my research, my passion, myself, you kept this secret." "Because I knew how it would look," Elias admitted. "I was trying to find a solution that would save me, the poor little astronomer who needed rescue." Maya's voice cracked with emotion. "I don't need saving, Elias. I need honesty." She walked to the door, turning back one last time. "Keep your quantum computers and your explanations. I'll find another way to map the stars." The perspective. For 2 weeks, Maya buried herself in work, splitting time between teaching undergraduates and desperately trying to recreate her breakthrough without Elias's resources. Without him, the loss felt dual, both professional and deeply personal. In the quiet moments between tasks, she found herself remembering not just their night together, but the smaller moments. Elias bringing her coffee during late research sessions, his genuine excitement when she explained complex astronomical concepts, the way he listened, truly listened to her ideas. "You should call him," suggested Dr. Harrison, who had noticed her distraction. "He was planning to turn the observatory into a tech campus," Maya reminded him. The elderly astronomer's expression turned thoughtful. "Perhaps, but intentions can change when we encounter something unexpected, like an astronomical anomaly." Before Maya could respond, the observatory director called an emergency staff meeting. The announcement was devastating. Due to budget cuts, the facility would close in 30 days. Across town, Elias sat in his penthouse office, staring at the acquisition papers still unsigned on his desk. The past 2 weeks had been hollow, his usual drive for corporate expansion replaced by persistent thoughts of Maya, her passion, her integrity, her absence. "Sir, the board is waiting for the observatory paperwork," his assistant reminded him. Elias made his decision. "Cancel the meeting. I need to revise our approach." That evening, as Maya worked alone in the observatory, mapping stars the old-fashioned way, the door opened behind her. "We're closed," she called without turning. "I know," Elias replied softly. "I came anyway." Maya turned slowly, bracing herself for the impact of seeing him again. He looked different, more humble somehow, less the polished executive. "I'm not here about us," he said quickly, reading her wariness. "I'm here about the observatory. Come to survey your future tech campus?" Maya asked, though the bite had left her tone, replaced by resignation. Elias shook his head, approaching with cautious steps. "I came to propose an alternative, not as a tech CEO, but as someone who's learned something valuable recently." He handed her a folder containing a new proposal: the creation of a foundation to preserve and expand the observatory as a research and educational center, with sustainable funding mechanisms that maintained scientific independence. "You'd have a seat on the governing board," Elias explained as Maya read. "Equal voice in all decisions. No corporate control." "Why?" Maya asked, finally meeting his eyes. "Why change your plans?" "Because you were right," Elias admitted. "About many things, including what matters more than profit." The constellation 1 year later, the newly renamed Horizon Observatory welcomed visitors for its grand reopening. The facility had been transformed, expanded research capabilities alongside new educational programs for local schools, and improved public viewing areas. Maya, now the lead research director, gave interviews alongside Elias, whose foundation had made it all possible. Their professional partnership had developed in tandem with the rebuilding of their personal relationship. Slowly, carefully, with clear boundaries and transparent communication. "They're calling it the Reeves-Shaw phenomenon," Elias said that evening, joining Maya on the observation deck after the crowds had departed. He handed her the latest astronomical journal featuring their discovery on the cover. "Catchy name?" Maya smiled, leaning into him as they looked toward the patch of sky, where their discovery resided, invisible to the naked eye but forever mapped in the scientific literature, with both their names. "Not bad for a coffee shop argument," Elias mused, his arm wrapping around her waist. "I prefer to call it a collision of worlds," Maya corrected, turning in his embrace, like stars that come together and create something new, beneath the vast canopy of stars they both loved. Elias knelt and opened a small box containing a ring with a stone that captured light like a miniature galaxy. "Speaking of stars coming together," he began, his voice uncharacteristically nervous. Maya's answer was already forming as she pulled him to his feet. Like the celestial phenomenon they'd discovered together, some forces in the universe were simply meant to converge, creating patterns more beautiful than either could form alone. "Yes," she whispered against his lips. "Definitely yes." Above them, countless stars continued their ancient patterns, indifferent to the human drama below, yet somehow connected through the passionate observation of two people who had found each other while searching the skies.